And it was discussed that. It was decided that, we're gonna. That we need some more, data. And we're gonna, send this back to executive committee. We were given a list of information. We decided on what information needs to be, collected. And once we have that information, the information will be discussed in executive committee. So the motion to discuss the ED salary will be presented at the next, committee meeting, council meeting.
Can I ask a question? So what, I would need to know like what additional information,
We'll give, yeah, we have one. I think we can,
and do we need a motion? Or,
The motion was made, she was just discussing what the motion is.
okay.
The next item of business is the executive director's report. The chair recognizes Ebony Haven.
So if you look in your packets, there, my report will be on the gray paper. And so there are a couple of highlights that I wanted to highlight from that report. One of the things is that the FY 25 budget request for the council was submitted to LDH on October 12th. The council's program performance report, or PPR, that we submit every year to our federal partners, the Administration on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, was submitted before the December 30th deadline, and the council should receive feedback sometime in the spring. So depending on when we receive the feedback, I'll provide that feedback either at the April meeting or the July meeting. One other highlight is that the legislative advocacy agenda for 2024 changed. One of the items that you all voted for in October, which was a funding increase for direct support worker pay raises, was not possible as written. LDH doesn't have a direct way that they can pay DSWs directly a pay raise, so that agenda item was going to have to change. The executive committee met on November 29th. And they discussed it, and they decided to change that agenda item and collaborate with the ARC of Louisiana to increase the waiver rates for night services. One last thing that I just wanted to mention, at that November 29th meeting, the executive committee decided to sign on to a letter with the Community Providers Association of Louisiana, the ARC of Louisiana, and the Supported Living Network. They sent the letter to LDH, and they were asking for them to use the unused ARPA funds for the development of a rate methodology for Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities and for the Office of Aging and Adult Services, Home and Community-Based. So that letter was sent to the interim Medicaid Executive Director, Ms. Kimberly Sullivan. And she responded just saying that they were going to have to give the new administration more information before they can provide an answer for us on whether or not they can use those ARPA funds to conduct a rate methodology to determine what the rate should be for DSWs. And that's all my highlights. Does anybody have any questions about that report?
Thank you, Ebony. Are there any questions from council members on the report?
I have one.
Michael?
And I'm just playing catch up here on some stuff. So, were you talking about the rates for direct service workers? Is that talking about, getting like an annual review of those rates?
Are you talking about the rate methodology?
Yes.
So the rate methodology would probably compare states, similar states to Louisiana to determine what the rate should actually be. So right now, the rate is at $18.50. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Julie.
Everything but children's stories.
Everything except for children's choice. So the rate methodology would just determine what the rate should be. I don't think that, I think Louisiana is one of the lower states, the lower paying.
Right.
Right, so that methodology would just determine what the rate should actually be.
Okay. And would there be, because that's been one of the things that would there be like a annual review of that? You know, as we're, like we've had cost of living, inflation go up and, you know, yes, ma'am.
So there's nothing right now that requires that for home and community-based waivers. For ICFs, there's a requirement that we look at what they call a rebase every 3 years. It doesn't mean it's funded, but it means we have to do what's called a rebase, where it's calculated what that would be. Interestingly enough, they just did on our, like, there's a email chain I'm on that's all state DD directors are attached to. And that was one of the questions they had. And it does look like some states, but they have to do legislative action for it. Some states are building in legislative requirements that you do a rate study every so many years. And then we're also waiting the Home and Community-Based Services Access Rule, which is a pretty big new federal regulation that we're looking at probably coming out in the spring, has some requirements around rate transparencies and things states will have to do differently around rates. And one of those things is looking at requiring that there be some regular intervals of rate studies, rate evaluations, looking at inflation and things like that. So that was anyway what was in the proposed rule was published. People made comments on it. We're waiting on that final rule to come out. So it's likely that there's going to be some federal requirements that require that we start to do a little more around rates than what we have previously done.
Are there any other questions about the report? The report requires no action and we placed on file. The next item of business is the budget report. The chair recognizes Ebony Haven.
I'm not sure what color the page is for the budget report, but it should be. It's white, okay, great. It is included in your packet. I don't have a lot of highlights. Just one thing I wanted to mention was that everything with our contractual activities is on a schedule. All of those contractual activities are moving along. We know we weren't able to have our committee meetings on yesterday where we give updates to those contractual activities, but if you all look at your status reports that are included in your packet, you'll see where we are with each activity in your FY24 action plan. And then just one more thing I wanted to know, as you'll see, there's dues and subscriptions. For December, we had a pretty big due and subscription. That's our subscription to the National Association on Councils on Developmental Disabilities, or NACDD. That's our annual membership dues, and we paid those in December. So that's pretty much all of the updates or highlights I wanted to make on the budget report, but I'm willing to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ebony. Are there any questions from council members in reference to the report? The report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next item of business is our committee reports. The first report is from the Act 378 Subcommittee. The chair recognizes Committee Chair Bambi Polizoa for the report.
No. We didn't
We
meet
didn't do- that's
yesterday,
true. I'm
so
sorry,
there's
sir.
nothing to discuss on that one.
We didn't.
Just the top?
Yeah.
Never mind. Don't do it.
Don't touch the mic.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to share? No, okay. Ms. Brooke, do you have anything to share for the self-determination community inclusion?
Yes. The Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee did not meet yesterday due to inclement weather. So please refer to your status report in your council meeting packet for updates on contractual and non-contractual activities. In our committee meeting, we were supposed to discuss activities we would like to recommend to the Planning Ad Hoc Committee for the fiscal year 2025 plan, which would begin in October 2024. Since we did not meet, we would like to take this time to open it up to all council members to provide possible recommendations for activities to be included in the plan. The Self-Determination Committee is responsible for goals 1 and 2 of the plan. Goal 1 deals with the advocacy and leadership, while goal 2 focuses on community living and supports. Keep in mind, the goals and objectives are set by our 5-year plan. We are just looking for ideas about possible activities. We can recommend to keep some or all of the activities, or we can look at recommending additional activities that fall under goals 1 and 2. In your packet, there's a copy of our current action plan for your reference. So would anyone like to get started?
That's your report.
He's not.
Yes. Would anybody like to get started on this?
Yeah.
That we said.
We'll open it up to everyone on the council for recommendations.
Any recommendations?
What are the recommendations for the 5-year plan? Or,
So, yeah,
Britton?
So this will be for our action plan, which is gonna start October 1. So our 5-year plan is still active. So all the goals and objectives that you see in that document, you cannot change. Those are set in our 5-year plan. So we're just looking at activities. And so what we would have done in self-determination is look at specifically goals 1 and 2. You'll get a chance to look at education and employment next. But goals 1 and 2 deal with advocacy, leadership, and the community and family support system plan. And seeing if there's anything that you might want the planning committee to consider, you might want the staff to do some research on, or you might have research on to talk about a different initiative. Because what we'll do in the planning committee is basically take our pot of money and start divvying it up amongst the contracts that we think we might want to try and do initiatives on. One thing we typically ask you to look at is, are there any objectives in there that are missing information that aren't quite, we don't have an initiative that's quite living up to that particular objective. And so that might give you an idea, maybe there's something missing. So that's kind of the idea. Normally, we would have had more time in committees yesterday to come up with recommendations. And you can also keep things that we're currently doing, or you can say, let's not do that anymore, or come up with new things.
Michael?
would that be a place to add, onto the, McCann legislative agenda for, rate increases?
That would be at our October meeting. Well, starting in July, August, you'll have community input meetings in LeCan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we give, or the public gives ideas of things to be on the advocacy agenda. So the advocacy agenda will be different than necessarily the action plan.
Okay.
Our action plan, we're looking at contractual things, non-contractual, which might be just work that staff or council members do directly with maybe some agencies or whoever can help us out with that particular initiative. I mean, unless you have an activity that relates,
Oh,
To-
Lauren, I'm sorry.
increases somehow.
I don't know, I'm new, so I don't know if there's something, but there's stuff called an Eagle account, and it's for people with disabilities. Developmental disabilities too, which it's and I don't know a whole, enough, about it, but we have one in the state of Louisiana, and what it is it's an account for people with disabilities that their family can put in, and it doesn't, count against their Medicaid benefits. And I didn't know if that would be something that we could look into or get more information about.
What's it called, Lauren?
Able account.
ABLE?
Mhm. We have it in the state of Louisiana, but just to get more information about it and how it works. And maybe have state contact. I think it's really great. Mandy, do you know more about that?
Kelly Monroe does.
Kelly?
Oh, sorry, but,
Hey, Kelly,
what about it?
that's what I'm proposing, one of the things I was proposing, that maybe could be one of our action plans. Is to promote it or get more information
That would be amazing.
out of, for people.
Yeah, that would be great. Did you have a question? I'm sorry, I was,
Well, I mean, what I'm thinking of like is getting, I don't know exactly how a vendor would tie into that, but maybe just, promoting it and telling families how this could help them save for their future and things like that.
we actually have a meeting coming up, is it next week, Candy? I think it's next week. I can send you the information. It's open to the public if you'd like to attend. I know that that was one of their priorities also is, promoting it. Melissa,
Can you send that information to the office so we can share?
Okay.
Thank you.
February 21st. Oh, they changed it. Oh, they changed it. Okay.
Where is it gonna be at?
It's in the Galvez building, which is downtown near the Capitol. Don't be late, because it usually doesn't last long. But yeah, that they talked about that at the last meeting, that they wanted to really start promoting it. Especially since we had those new changes happen to the ABLE. It's really one of the best in the US, as far as I'm concerned.
Any other recommendations? Ms. Belinda?
I think, for the social media, they should consider a TikTok page because I know as a special education teacher, a lot of people look for information about special education laws. I know the council on the Facebook page, they share a lot of informative video. I think they should share these videos on TikTok, just to know, so people could know more about the council because the TikTok I found is growing. That would be our recommendation to consider
Do
TikTok.
we have an Instagram?
We don't.
Okay, I'm gonna stop there. If you have an Instagram and post it on Facebook, it'll automatically post to Instagram. So that's all then.
I have a recommendation too. I was at the Council for State Governments Conference a couple months ago. And I met with a senator from Colorado named Tanya Lewis, I believe her name is. And in that state, she got a bill passed for foster parents that were fostering children with developmental disabilities they were required to take a specific training. And I think that that's something that we should look into, especially since they're trying to recruit and retain more foster parents in the state of Louisiana right now for DCFS. And so that's my recommendation for
To
something
be training for foster parent,
specifically for developmental disability. Yeah.
so foster parent training for taking children with disabilities.
Where does that fall under, which?
I have no idea. It's just something I put out. It's something I'm spearheading. I'll just say that.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, I'm happy to talk more with you too. We just recently did two
I was on
focus group sessions, trying to talk about some ideas that we could have to promote folks to be able, to foster kids with developmental disabilities. We started and we have now some contacts with DCFS and our Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities. There's now a administration change, so we're kind of waiting to get back on track, but my boss is the deputy secretary. He and I have already talked about needing to continue that work with DCFS. So I don't have anything like specific to tell you at this point, but we'll definitely be reaching back out and we'll go through the council and others avenues too to continue that conversation. I know it's important to folks that we continue that conversation.
Michael?
I am a foster parent of children with developmental disabilities, which are therapeutic foster parents. So it's a different certification process and you go through different agencies. And most of those do have continual training, but there is not a specific one for developmental disabilities. So I think that would probably be a good addition there. Not one I've seen anyway. I haven't taken it.
Phil?
So I think people probably recall, we've talked about it a couple of times, but we're really trying to put a big initiative on fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. And I was going to hold this till we got to the education and employment piece because it seemed like it fit under some of those goals. But when we're in conversations with DCFS as well about doing training for them and all for their staff, but then ultimately for foster parents because of the high incidence of kiddos with fetal alcohol spectrum disorders who are living in foster care situations. So it seems like using good universal design would make a lot of sense to kind of just try to weave this into, since there's already an initiative underfoot. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
I don't know that it's
It's
formally,
being
but yes,
discussed,
it definitely does. It started under the previous administration and current administration wants to continue the
So
discussion.
if I can be so bold as to try to invite ourselves into that conversation in some fashion, so that we're not just doing 14 different separate trainings that we did. And also with therapeutic training, I don't know anything about that. Is it something that's a live training or is it on a website or?
It's
I just want to look at it.
combination of, and it's different by each of the provider
Oh,
agencies.
okay.
So, we foster through Volunteers of America as our agency for our foster kids.
So is it Volunteers of America is pushing that providing that training, or is it the state in some fashion?
That's Volunteers of America, but I think there's a requirement we have to have a certain number of hours of training.
Any other recommendations?
Does the first responder training fall under goal 1 and 2?
Yes, it is under goal 2.
I just wanted to add, as far as working in ER settings, because we're first responder on that side, particularly in St. Landry Parish, I find that nurses on the front end of receiving a patient with developmental disability, they don't handle situations as well as I wish they would. A lot of times I would get thrown those patients because those other nurses didn't know how to deal with it, or they would exacerbate a situation, or they didn't know how to talk to people. So a thought is extended toward ER setting, just because that's where first responders usually take these patients. And when they get into the ER setting, what a psychiatric process is going to look like and having to handle those people, because I've seen people be handled in a very rough way, very sad way. And it's something I'm extremely passionate about, but it really upsets me when it happens.
Anyone else?
I was just gonna make a suggestion. I know I was looking at the information and I know one of the issues was with handling pharma complaint with the Louisiana Department of Education. One of the things I think we could do with the Family Health and Family, maybe provide roundtables for parents on the procedures on how to do a complaint. I think that would be beneficial. Like to explain to parents the process and procedures.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, okay.
As I'm a retired educator, and 32 years ago, I worked with a child with fetal alcohol syndrome, and there was nothing there to help. I'm sure there's more now, but the same thing with the trainings for the developmental, the foster parents of children with developmental disabilities. I'm wondering if while y'all are doing this, maybe y'all can include State Department of Ed, so that there can be, instead of reinventing the wheel for every department, because the Department of Ed has a really good conference every summer. Some of those trainings could maybe be directed toward teachers of children with not only special needs, not only special ed teachers, but general ed teachers who work with these children as well. And it would just help to strengthen it across the spectrum of services.
I know they opened the window to register for that. And when does it close, Meredith? I think in a week or two.
Early registration is now, but registration will stay open until,
But to apply as a speaker.
as a speaker, let me check.
Well,
Just
And
let
look,
the presenter
it's not something that needs to be rushed into, because they're gonna have it again next year. So as y'all are working on this, it can just be part of the process. It just helps to go, just advance the information.
Yes, Brandon.
I just had a question, and maybe one of the center directors that are here could answer, the HF center directors. As far as trainings on the complaint process, is that a part of the Department of Ed contracts that you have, or?
Not specifically, it can be one of the trainings, and some of the centers feel more comfortable doing it than others.
Gotcha.
And so we will partner with each other on something like that.
Okay, I just didn't know if that was something that was being done or not. I mean, we could find that out later, but just curious.
Jill?
So if these are trainings for FHF, would that be a goal under goal one or still an EE issue? And I hate to put it like that.
You would,
That's
that's the mechanism of making a training about the complaint procedures happen. So your initiative would need to be something written that we want to make sure that there are trainings out there. We could potentially look at negotiating contracts with the centers if that's how the council wants to do those trainings. So your plan would not say FHF centers are going to do these trainings. That's a contractual thing that we handle. You would just be looking at an initiative, how we can ensure people are trained on this complaint procedure, and then we figure out how to do it. Maybe through FHF, maybe not. We might put it out. If it ends up going through, it might be put out through a bid. It might be something that we can talk to the FHF centers with and find out that most of them are already doing this to some extent through another contract. And if that's the case, we don't want to give them any additional funding, if we can even give additional funding, if they're already being paid through another contract to do this. And that's another thing that we have to do with negotiations, especially if our agenda is not successful this year, we don't get that additional funding added back in for FHF. Usually if we want to request something, you reimburse them for additional things that they're doing, or we have to take something off. Just a thought.
Anyone else? Is there any public comment? This report requires no action and will be placed on file. Next item of business is the report of the Education Employment Committee. Because Renata Washington is not here, I'll go ahead and give the report. Oh, I didn't see you.
no, I forgot what agenda item we were on. I'm like, I did give a question.
Remember it? That's okay. It happens to everybody. It's coming back. All right. For the Education Employment Committee, due to the weather, we did not meet yesterday. The goal was to discuss goal 3 of the action plan and come up with recommendations for activities that meet the goals of the 5-year plan. Everyone should have reviewed the FFY 2024 action plan, which was linked in the agenda you received via email. There is also a copy of the action plan in your committee packet. Does anyone have any recommendations for activities for goal 3 of the council's plan? Bill.
So back to FASD again. You know, by law as well as by tradition, the DD Council, the USED, HTC, and DRLA, the PNA for Louisiana, we're supposed to function as a DD network. Historically, we've included other like OCDD and LDE and LRS and a couple other agencies also. But we are all required as Ebony and other people could attest to include specific reports to Congress on what we do as a network, collaboratively. And I would love to invite not only the city council and DRLA, but the relevant state agencies to kind of consider taking this on as FASD, that is, as an important thing that we can kind of dedicate some funds and resources and personnel to addressing in our state. So I looked at the objectives, and there's 2 or 3 of them that already exist where those things could, FASD kind of is a natural fit, as in activity 3.11 and 3.13 and 3.14. So it's, it's one of those things that I know that we are going to include, we have included those FAFE in our goals. I'm inviting or requesting or reaching out to Julie and Meredith and Melissa as well to can we kind of take that on, take FASD on as a specific objective that will go into all of our sort of work plans. But for today, I'm talking to the council, but I'm going to circle back around and talk to the directors of the other agencies that I just mentioned.
I had a question. So do you want to collaborate on like bringing more awareness about FASD or like, I guess?
So what I wanted to, we have specific goals within our you said 5-year plan.
Mhm.
But I don't want to be so bold as to assign or whatever, goals to another organization. But I guess what I really like is, I know this is a process. If we don't get something into the plan, then we have to wait another year if we do agree, right? So I was trying to get some kind of placeholder to get it in there and then see if we can't have a meeting to say what from your agency's perspective or whatever. So certainly awareness is a big thing. Another big thing is, helping professionals to learn the right strategies to use with kiddos that have FASD. Another big thing is diagnosis or identification. But until we have professionals who can do something about it, it's not really ethical to identify kids and say, well, good luck, right? So it seems like there's a prioritization that would occur with all the players rather than just sit here today and say, but I guarantee you that awareness is definitely on our radar, and we'd love to collaborate with the other agencies in a unified way. So people begin to understand that, 1 in 20 first graders in America have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. That's huge.
I'd like to make a recommendation. If our objective under objective 3.2, I would like us to see about talking with some of our Chamber of Commerce's around the state about how to have make it a benefit for businesses to go ahead and employ some of our children. Many of our children that I serve are now working in the community, but yet after they finish school, they don't get a job. So they love coming to work. They love coming to school now because they want they want to go to work. They love their job. But afterwards, they're not getting a job. So we need to see about talking with maybe Chamber of Commerce and businesses to see what is the problem why they can't still attain these jobs once they're graduating. So I think that's something that maybe we could look at, because they are good workers, and what's stopping the business from hiring them once they graduate? Lauren?
I'm on the LRC council, and one of the things that we were discussing was, is it work-based?
Yeah.
And I just say,
Community-based instruction.
some people might not know what the LRC is.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's the
Rehabilitation
Rehabilitation Council. And it's like the work-based experiences in the classroom.
Community-based instruction.
And then you also have like the on-the-job training, but I know that it's been hard to get staff to be like the business reps. Is that correct? Correct.
The job.
Out in the community
Mhm.
and kind of match the clients, you know, the LRS clients, employment.
I think you're talking about our res position, which is the
Right.
rehabilitation employment development specialist, and we do have a couple of vacancies in that particular position. But when those positions are vacant, we do have fee-for-service community rehabilitation programs that we're able to send those individuals to. And we actually just changed our procedures to allow those community rehab programs to use on-the-job training as a mechanism to try to get employers to hire individuals with disabilities.
And what I'm speaking about, I'm sorry, is like, our children with disabilities who don't have really necessarily the physical or, disabilities, but more is just they're a lower function, but still capable to go into the community, but they're not maintaining those jobs. Even though with a job coach and going into some of these, businesses, they can function independently, but they're not giving the chance. So they really don't need a direct service, you know, a worker with them. They're able to function independently. We just need to let these businesses know that these children can, you know, serve as and want good employment and need that good employment. Phil?
So, guess what? Sounds a lot like Project Paycheck or whatever, maybe rebranded.
Mhm.
We have tried to tap into, and I'm gonna use the wrong old words, but the old vendor guide, what is it called now?
Yes, it's new. Now it's professional learning partner guide.
And so we have Ascension Parish, Saint Bernard and Saint Charles have already asked us to come in and teach their staff, their teachers, how to provide these services to kiddos as a school service.
Mhm.
And we leave after a year or so, when they're competent, to the teachers. And it's gonna take that transformation of the schools figuring out that if you want to support kids with intellectual disabilities, as adults or prepare them for adulthood, one of the things you have to understand is that you could fill up this whole building with literature, research showing that what differentiates kids with intellectual disabilities from plain vanilla kids is they don't generalize what they learn in a particular setting. And also typically they learn slower, right? So what we know is if we have kids in school from 18 to 21, and they're sitting there doing God knows what from 18 to 21, that's related to their adult life, why not take the resources that we have? Because obviously when kids leave school, as we know, the LRS and other adult service systems are much starker resources, not as much resources for supporting these kiddos, but they can learn to work in these settings, be in these settings, demonstrate their competence, their value to employers, all that good stuff as paid interns.
And our school district does that. That's what we're.
Which district?
Iberia.
Iberia.
We just
yeah.
started this year.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is to find employment, we have businesses who want to assist us, but it's jobs that our kids not necessarily want to do.
Mhm.
For example, we have some that want to work with animals, a veterinarian, to even just be an assistant, like helping feed the animals. We're having those, to find those jobs for those workers. It's very hard and it's tedious. So, we're having to put our own time in as teachers to try to find some of these businesses ourselves for these kids.
Right, and my point would be that that's what they need to learn.
Mhm.
So why are we teaching them to sign their name or identify states or whatever it is?
Mhm.
They need to learn to not only do the work, that's the easy part.
Yeah.
It's how to function in the community. in a way that fits in, and then people say, oh, I like this guy, I'm gonna have lunch with him, or what, next thing you know, we're breaking down that whole disability, social model of disabilities. So I'm excited to hear you say that and for that to be here, and it sounds like it's happening in
It's
different
happening,
pockets around
But I
the
just
state.
think if we
Great.
discuss with Chamber of Commerce's the pros about hiring some of these children, I think it would be have a great impact on each community. That the children will be able to get out more, do more things in the community, because everyone loves these kids. They're great kids. They're just not given the, the opportunities to do these great things. So. Yes, ma'am.
Pregnant, I thought we had impact to, like, well, we probably got retired in, but didn't we have that type of training on our plan not too long ago?
We did, yeah.
Yeah,
It
kind of
was
something.
last year's plan.
And the year before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'll just say that the contractor that we contracted with didn't receive a lot of great feedback from the chambers of commerce. And so they sort of changed that activity to be more of like, they focus more on businesses, trying to tell them about the incentives of hiring, tax breaks and all those kinds of things of hiring individuals with disabilities. I'll just say the reason why the planning committee last year decided not to continue that activity was because they weren't seeing a lot of great numbers. A lot of people weren't attending those employment seminars.
Would it be because it was not from somebody who had any stake in it? They were just giving them information? Like, for instance, it would be like somebody like me. I think it would have more of an impact, than just giving somebody just information. It's just a thought, because I have a business, driver's education, and I have many kids with disabilities who come to our school. And we contact our chamber and everything, and we're part of the chamber. So I think that might be a stepping stone, that maybe we can go that route. As a thought. Oh. Yes, go ahead.
But I'll share what we've done that we found to be very successful. We've done what we call career symposiums, and we've partnered with our local school districts where they take a full day and bus their kids into the one location that we have, and they participate in a full day of banking skills, interview skills, etc. And then at the end of that event, right after lunch, they go and they practice those skills with employers that we've had. So we have had like the Audubon Zoo, SPCA. We go to the schools and get their interest so that we can make sure that we have those people available. And that's been pretty successful with our partnerships with the schools and with our partnerships with the businesses. And this year, the first time we'll be hosting our first employee convening with local businesses, with panelists from IBM and some other places at the GNO Foundation to talk about the importance of hiring people with disabilities, the resources that you would need to hire those people, how do we retain individuals with disabilities, et cetera. And if you get partnered with, like, just find that one person that you could gel with and partner, and pitch your ideas and get them to bust them into that one location and have all of those resources in one place. And I think that might help you.
Could you give us your information and we can get together with you? Yeah. Or send it to Ebony and she can share it with us?
Okay.
Most definitely. Thank you so much for that information. Any other recommendations? Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
We might have to wait on this, but I know the Louisiana Workforce is coming out with their new plan for the 4 years, and maybe when they post it, we can make some recommendations. LRS has to have a part of the plan. Maybe have some kind of recommendations for people with developmental disabilities, because I work in the workforce and they don't always connect with LRS, and they don't always, like, it's, sometimes it feels like disabilities are a little aside because they have to include that in their plan. I work at a one stop and I definitely don't see it every day in action. So I at least need to start telling them we need to be a part of this conversation, even small, as drafting a letter or supporting one of their initiatives, just so they realize that, you know, we're here, and we do, it is challenging to find employment. So, that even our state needs to take it seriously. So that's one of my recommendations.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else?
Is this the only opportunity today is to make recommendations, or will this come up in the?
Yeah, so the planning committee will meet sometime before the April meeting, and at that meeting, you can bring recommendations as well.
Can I just make a comment about the timing of the state plan? So the state plan is due mid-March. So there is gonna be a 30-day comment period. Now they may ask for an extension because of the change of the administration. I'm not sure yet. But just to let you know, the comment period, if everything goes as planned, should probably be in February, at the latest. So that's when you would have to make those comments.
There's the ability to make a comment about a previous objective or?
Go ahead.
So this is related to, Louisiana Department of Education schools with, students with special needs, or special healthcare needs. I'm the parent of a child with epilepsy. In 2 years, we worked to pass legislation requiring all, school staff be trained in seizure first aid and safety because of the immense safety issues that kept coming up, and also the lack of awareness of the educational challenges that can come for our children. I also work for an organization that works with these families, and we have found that the schools are not in compliance with this law. And it's kind of been up to us actually to move forward with that. So I would just like to include the recommendation to consider seizures and epilepsy as we move forward with this.
Thank you. I think that's the right thing. And I know, like from experience, that usually the only time we get training for is when we have children in our classrooms. But yet there's many times we've had a student across the hall and they calling me, Christy, we don't know what's going on, you know. So I understand. I think everyone should be.
We're working as part of a national initiative across the country. It's been required for all teachers because 1 in 10 people will have a seizure in their lifetime. So it's kind of really proactive to do it that way. However, with what happened during that session, it was changed to only be teacher. The challenge that we're having is we will identify these students. We will reach out to the schools. We're approved by the Louisiana Department of Education to provide these trainings, and we will all get straight out reviews to come in and train the schools or any of the personnel, even after the passage of the legislation.
Okay. But, I can follow up with that too and see what I can do about.
And I think a lot of it still just is what we found, though, it's a lack of awareness. I mean, similar to everything else, a lack of awareness of everything that goes along with epilepsy and highly stigmatized. The concerning part for me is having been the one to train teachers. Teachers always love this training. They feel so much better and safer and more confident in responding to a seizure if they have been trained versus is not. So there's like a breakdown that we've seen between the educators and the administrators with this.
Could you send us your information too? That way we can get that from you. Okay. Thank you. Any other recommendations?
Can I have a follow-up question? So how long does the training actually take? relatively?
No, epilepsy is a spectrum disorder, so if you do include a lot of different things about epilepsy to help make it that part understanding, so I can do it in about 45 minutes.
So,
But that was one of the concerns in consideration of the vast number of other trainings, right, that teachers have to.
so if we could follow up, we do, through one of our initiative areas, we do a lot of, sort of lunch and learn-ish type, web-based things, but we have a community of learners around the state with a couple thousand educators that participate on a regular basis. If you are interested in being part of that, I could see that would be a top, it's not your ultimate goal, but it might be a baby step or a refresher or whatever for teachers if you want to be a part of that. So name, so I can
My
follow
name is
up.
Amanda Mitchell.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Meredith, couldn't we maybe do a session at the conference and those who attend get the training, since you said it takes about 45 minutes? The sessions are about, what, 50 minutes?
So I can shorten it to 45 minutes,
Well,
so
no.
like a full session, a full hour long session is very reasonable amount of.
Okay, I'm just thinking that how to get this to because they service thousands of teachers at this conference. It would be
Yeah.
one way to get that information across.
No, that would be amazing.
Thought.
I've heard of the conference before. It's not something we've participated in the past. In the past, we have done the Louisiana School Nurses Association conference and presented there, but that was by invitation from there. So I would love to get more information from somebody at the conference.
I can consider that, figure out what's the best location. Because if it's required for all teachers too, we're gonna have to get a broader audience.
Yeah. Just as a way to just kind of put our foot in the door.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other recommendations or comments? The next item for business is standing council member reports. Please refer to the reports in your packet. Our first report is from the LSU HAC Human Development Center. The chair recognizes Dr. Phil Wilson.
Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm gonna keep this really brief because basically we have been swamped in the middle of reorganizing our center. Everything we're doing is, I've reported on in the past, and going forward, our work is going on. But we really are pushing to try to figure out ways to collaborate with more internally at the university, but externally with more community partners and state agency collaboration. Hence, my request earlier about trying to figure out how we reignite the Louisiana DD network group. And so I'm going to leave it at that, because I can give you some numbers that you, frankly, you guys know, people should know pretty much what our major initiatives are at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Are there any questions from council members? Any public comment? Hearing none, the report requires no action and we place on file. The next item for business is a report from Louisiana Rehabilitation Services. The chair recognizes Melissa Bam for the report.
Thank you. My report's on the white sheet paper. With all of our reports, we give the metrics that have been required, that have been requested by the DD Council. So pre-employment transition services, we're currently serving about 4,020 students statewide. That's a combination of service agreements with our community rehabilitation programs, then also through contracts and third-party cooperative arrangements with about 15 school districts. You also see our statistics for the quarter, number of applications, all the way down to our total open for VR, which is 9,163. And the total open for pre-employment transition services is 3,580.
Can I ask you a quick
Yes,
clarifying
absolutely.
question? What is, eligibility / delayed? What does that mean?
Well, right now, delay nothing.
Oh, good.
When we have, so when we don't have enough funding, we have to go in order of selection. And so delays is basically a waiting. Yeah, no waiting list right now. On the next page, we have DD, it says open VR cases. So this will show you by region, how many individuals we have, that we're working with developmental disabilities. Then we have our closed rehabilitated cases. That means that they've gone through the whole process and we've closed their case and they're working in competitive integrated employment. And then you will see our numbers for the rehabilitation and development specialists. And we currently do not have this position filled in regions 3 or 7. But as I had discussed earlier, I mean, this is like an in-house job developer for LRS. So when this position is filled, the consumers are still being served. They're just being served through a private community rehabilitation program. Our Louisiana Rehabilitation Council, which is the advisory council for LRS, will meet next week, January the 25th at the LWC headquarters in Baton Rouge. We are looking to fill vacancies, 2 from current or former applicants of VR services, a representative from the State Workforce Investment Board or the WIC, a representative of the area of rehabilitation technologies, and director of a federal Section 121 project, which is the American Indian Project. So that those are the vacancies that we have on our board right now. We also provided some statistics from our statewide disability inclusion job fair, which was conducted in October. So you can see the numbers there. That is done in collaboration with Healthy Blue, and they have indicated that they want to do this again next year. So we are looking forward to that. Melissa, I'm sorry.
Is there any way, if y'all doing it again next year, to get information sent early to the school systems so our children of age can participate? Because we did want to, but it was, we received it. You have to have a certain time limit where everything has to be sent in. And with it being close to back, when school starts in August, we couldn't attend.
Gotcha.
So I can let them know that is it gonna be in October again?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll just let them know. Thank you.
Also, we have information on benefits planning. I know this has been a hot topic with the council in the past because benefits planning is so important. And so 28 consumers were directly assisted by our in-house community partner work incentives counselor, was called that CBICS. But we also send consumers to Lighthouse for the Blind and LSU Development Center. We also are in year 3 of our DIFT project, which is our Disability Innovation Fund project called Project STEM Up, which we're doing in collaboration with Southern University of Baton Rouge. And so we are seeing consumers and taking applications, or not necessarily applications, but we're seeing individuals who are interested in that particular project, which is some additional training and additional assessments, and it's a lot of job readiness type activities for individuals who are going into STEM applications, and we're hoping to have internships and things like that available for them as well. I also just wanted to mention, as everyone knows, all the departments are going through administration changes. We do have a new departmental secretary. Her name is Susanna. She goes by Susie Showen. So that's our new departmental secretary. My assistant secretary, who I report to, who is the appointing authority for LRS, her last day is tomorrow, and I do not know yet who our new assistant secretary will be. Also wanted to mention that we recently kind of revamped our technical assistance and guidance manual. We've done a work order, but it has not been put on the Workforce Commission website, but we have requested it to be put on there. But then if you ever go to the LRS page and you're looking for information on our different services, I think you'll find that this manual will be a lot easier to read. We also, my financial administrator also developed an LRS fee schedule. So all of our fees are within the technical assistance and guidance manual, but this is like a 290-page document. But the actual fee schedule is a much quicker read where you can see all the different rates for Louisiana Rehab Services. We also have added some new services. And I'm really excited about this. So we've added adult work-based learning experiences. So work-based learning experiences really became a thing in VR with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act with pre-employment transition services. So we've been offering that service for our students with disabilities, but now our community rehabilitation programs will be able to use adult work or we'll be able to fund adult work-based learning experiences for our adults and not just our students with disabilities. We've renamed the service. So if you're familiar with time-limited job coaching, that has been renamed short-term job support. So it's a little bit different structure. We are in the process of scheduling training with our community rehabilitation programs because a lot has changed in terms of our employment services. We also have added job search assistance. So in the past, in order to be compensated for job development, it was a combination job development and placement. So once the individual was placed into employment, that's when the vendor was compensated. But for different reasons, sometimes individuals, don't get work, or it takes a long time to place an individual. And in that period, the community rehab provider was not being compensated. So job search assistance just allows compensation throughout the job development process. So it's not really new. It's just the way we're funding it is different, and I think a lot better. Also with support employment services, this is a service that is federally allowable for up to 24 months, but the way our milestone system was set up, you were paid for 3 months of job coaching. So we have added some additional flexible milestones that can be added for an individual who needs additional supports beyond that 3 months of job coaching to extend that 21 months. So you can have a total of 24 months of job coaching and support employment services now. So those are the big changes. If you have any questions.
So on the new manual, it has everything, all the services that LRS provides?
Correct. And we've always had a manual, but this one, I personally think it's so much easier to navigate. Because right now, if you go on the LA Works website, and also this is how it was for my counselors as well, it's a bunch of documents, and you have to flip through them. Now it's all in one PDF with, you can put the table of contents on the side, or you can actually navigate through the table of contents. You can click it and it'll bring you to that specific section. So it's a lot easier if you don't know exactly where you're going, where to find your information. If you have individuals who are going into post-secondary education, we had that in several sections of our manual, and it's all in one place now. It should be a lot easier for people to, including my staff.
Because I know a lot of I work in, I'm a SPED teacher, and a lot of the information we're not receiving. We don't know even though we work with LRS, we don't know exactly what is provided. Like I said, my son just started, I told you he started at Nichols, he's doing great with the LRS services, but I didn't even think I would qualify. And so Nichols is the one who told me to go ahead and apply. So none of that trickles down to the teachers or the parents. I just wanted to let you know that we don't get that information. And I didn't even know that we were able to, without receiving any other services, that I would even be able to receive these services for him. Because I don't receive any other services for him.
Right. I understand. We definitely acknowledge that we have a staffing shortage.
Yeah.
And so one thing we are in the process of drafting, we did this history report, but for a reason outside of our control, it did not work with that particular contractor. But we're trying it again to do a staffing contract in order to get some additional staff to help us, especially there's delegable functions within, vocational rehabilitation, to help us with some of that outreach and things like that, that we're not able to get to because we don't have enough counselors.
And I've been telling everybody. So it's a wonderful program and thank you. But I just wanted to let you know that it's not trickling down the pipeline. So
I understand, and, I'm not sure, I know the Department of Education is starting a new project, and I'm hoping with that particular project, if we have school districts that have what we call third-party cooperative arrangements, it works so much better. Because that school district they have their own staff in terms of that person is, a staff member of that particular school district, but they're actually under the administrative supervision of VR because it's VR funded. And so it's much better since they're kind of VR and kind of the school districts. We know that school district is covered and they're getting that information. So I know with the project that the Department of Education is starting, I think the purpose is to make that a little bit better known and made available.
And remember, part of that work too is going to produce a statewide website that will be friendly for parents. And that's where we can get a lot of this information into one place where parents know, okay, where do I go find out what all I need to do to access some of these resources. So I think that will help some too.
because once they graduate, they're like, what happens now? Right. Any other comments or recommendations?
So I think that it might, with this new change with LRS, if we could, if you guys could do like a webinar that explains it, because as I was in a meeting yesterday with, I just heard the explanation and you know how involved I've been in employment, and it's still, I'm wondering, how's that gonna work for Chaz? My son is graduating from UL. So then what does that mean? Is he's getting the job after May? I have some ideas. I don't understand how that works. So like, I think if it was like a really user-friendly way, like a 1 hour webinar that explains, now you have some new things in place, so you can go and explain that and give some, this is how it'll work in these type of situations, some type of examples. And then, I know that would take a little bit of time maybe to develop that within your staff, but then it could be shared. And people can say, this is the examples to go by, and this is what they're, saying how it works. Even if it's just in a, I don't want to touch on every single thing, but at least some really good examples. I think that would be helpful for the community, because I think that's one of the problems is that people don't understand and ask. And so sometimes maybe something's available and people don't even know to ask for that. So
No, that's definitely a great idea, baby. I just want to clarify, other than adult work-based learning experiences, nothing has changed in terms of what services you're going to receive. They just might be called something a little bit different. It's really a change for the counselor and the CRP or the community rehabilitation program. But as far as the consumer, it shouldn't look much different. It should be better, I would hope, because the services are more extended. There's more hours in job readiness. There's more hours in short-term job support. But I absolutely.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Bayham. Hearing that there are no further comments, the report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next item of business is a report from the Bureau of Health Services Financing, Medicaid. The chair recognizes Tangela Womack for the report.
Good morning, everyone. The Medicaid report is the blue one in your folders. Beginning on page 3, of course, the ending of continuous coverage is one of the largest Medicaid initiatives. And what that means is we, due to the 2023 Consolidated Appropriations Act, language in that act terminated the continuous coverage that was allowed during the PHE. So with that, Medicaid started redetermining Medicaid eligibility for all of their members last year in April. That is still going on through May. But I think it's important to note that if you know anyone who has Medicaid, this is an annual requirement now. So they had to renew last April, it's coming up again this April. So they've received the same packet, they need to resubmit their information. It's every 12 months, I'm sorry. Down in the bullets, it tells you how you can get additional information and complete your packet. You can do it online. If you need assistance, you can go to one of our Medicaid application centers and you can call in through customer service. The second section is on our Act 21 Children's Medicaid option. And what that is, it's an option for children under the age of 19 that disregards family income. And it allows these children with disabilities who meet specific criteria to receive services who normally wouldn't. It disregards income for the most part. So as of December 22nd, we have approved 1,723 children through the TEPRA option. Flipping over to page 4. At the top of that page, it provides you with the website to go to Act 421 to receive additional resources, and it walks you through the application process. The steps are 1 through 4 listed here as well. This is also an annual requirement to make sure you keep your eligibility. You have to do the level of care assessment and complete the Medicaid application, which we try to align to make it more efficient for the families. To provide some updated enrollment for a few of our programs, beginning with permanent supportive housing. Our sister agencies, Office of Aging and Adult Services, OCDD, and OBH, they continue to assist participants to transition into permanent supportive housing, and we currently have 3,860 individuals being served. At the top of page 5, our Money Follows the Person program. It's My Place Louisiana, and as of December 1st, 2023, we have approximately 4,113 individuals. In the chart below, it shows the number of individuals we have had transition by year, starting at 2009 up into 2023. Going over to page 6, our self-direction program. These are for our participants enrolled in the Road Now or Children's Choice and Community Choices waivers. As of November 30th of 2023, we have 2,477 individuals using the self-direction option. Down at the bottom of page 6, our electronic visit verification. All of our personal care services are provided through EBB, which means they're using this computer-based system to verify the visit occurrences. And as of January 1, we've added home health today.
If you'd rather hold my question till the end or.
Oh, it did.
Okay, then, children's choice. So if you're using self-direction, when you age out, what happens?
Julie Denning.
Yeah, so same thing that would happen if you had a traditional provider agency, but so you start the process, should start the process at, I think it's like 16 and a half, because you can age out at 18 or you can age out at 21, depending on the individual circumstances. But if you move to the Row or the Now, for the services that are done through self-direction, you can just continue to do those services.
Oh, that's great.
Through
That's great.
self-direction.
Moving over to page 7, our CSOC program, which is managed by our Office of Behavioral Health. The current enrollment of this program is 2,237 as of December 15th of 2023. On pages 8 and 9, it shows our behavioral health network adequacy, and it's broken down by each MCO. Sorry for the small font, but we can provide that chart if you guys would like to. And on our last page, our ABA services were carved into our MCOs as a behavioral health benefit, and it provides statistics based on our member and enrollment per MCO as well. I'm happy to take any additional questions. Are there any questions or public comment? Any questions from council members? Hearing none, the report requires no action will be placed on file.
if there's. Okay, the next item of business is the report of the Office of Public Health. The chair recognizes Ms. Patty Barrecchio for the report.
Hi, my name is Ken Barabicchio and I work for the Bureau of Family Health. We sit under the Office of Public Health on the Louisiana Department of Health. And we administer the state's Title V program, which includes children and youth with special health care needs programming. And find my report at one G-Roll. And there's a lot of ongoing services that are outlined here. We haven't had any major changes with our subspecialty services that are provided in areas of the state where we offer specialist providers in communities where there are inadequate access in the community. And so those clinics are still servicing families in those areas. There's also social workers in those public health units that provide behavioral health services. And you can find out more details as outlined in the report. Children's Special Health Services also offers a transportation assistance program. So if they have applied for Medicaid transportation services and they are inadequate to meet the need, they can apply if they meet eligibility for CSA transportation assistance program. We also, the Bureau sponsors a family resource center. This is a statewide virtual resource center. We will support any family with a need that is in any way touches health in a holistic manner. So if it is food insecurity, if it is needing help finding a health provider, insurance access, they are trained community resource specialists that will work with families. Also, as part of our Family Resource Center, we do outreach to every family that is identified through birth defects surveillance and offer them resource and referral services. We also work with Families Helping Families, working to expand for resource and referral services within their communities so that all children and youth with special health care needs in the state have access to these services. In addition, we have the Early Hearing Detection and Intervention Program under the Bureau. We do the Newborn Heal Stick program. Again, we do the Louisiana Birth Defects Monitoring Surveillance, and also provide services and information and data resources through our Partners for Family Health .org website. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any about the programming.
So I know that FASD or FAS in the old days, full syndrome, was at one point in time a condition that was on the birth defects registry. That the fact that only one kid in the whole state was identified for several years or whatever, that eventually that was dropped off. So my question is, as we ramp up on FASD, it's a brain injury, as you know, so it does seem like it would qualify as a child or an adult, but not so much with your program. With presumptive eligibility under having a special health care need. Is that basically correct? Or what is the process for making sure that as we move forward, we're in alignment with what you all are doing?
So as far as the Louisiana Birth Defects Monitoring Network, the program manager for that is Julie Johnson, right, and she is a wealth of information. I do believe they follow the CDC list. I'm speaking, that's not my program.
So Julie would be able to.
But Julie will be able to give you all the information.
Is there somewhere then a list? Like
yes.
These are all the.
Absolutely.
And I remember at once upon a time, autism wasn't on that list.
I can.
So it got added to the list.
Well, when you think of birth defects, this is something that is diagnosed at birth. So
Oh, at
this
birth.
comes
Yeah,
from
okay.
data extraction and birth records. So, but I'm happy to connect you with, like I said,
I can
she
call
can give
Julie, I
you
know.
all of the information. Oh, you, yeah, Julie.
Any other comment or public comment? Hearing none, the report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next item of business is the report of the Office of Aging and Adult Services. The chair recognizes Mindy Richard to present the report.
Hello, good morning. So mine is this peach colored one in your packet. There's a lot of numbers on this page. All the statistics that have been requested in the past, along with some demographics as well. But I'll kind of give you some high level that we're working on notes. As many have mentioned with the administration change, that with the new governor, there comes a lot of administration changes, and we also have a new secretary. Dr. Ralph Abraham is our new secretary. And so there's always a period of time when a new secretary comes in where all the leadership changes are shaken out, and also policies and initiatives are reviewed, and a decision is made to either continue working on a particular initiative or to hold up and go in a different direction. And we're kind of in that zone right now. So, but I will speak to you about a few things that are absolutely moving forward in our new administration and as well as in our old administration. And the primary thing that we're spending a lot of energy on today is those American Rescue Plan Act dollars. You know, those dollars came to us during COVID, and it was really the intention is to expand home and community-based services. We initially used that money to pay for increased rates for the providers, all the different types of providers, as well as bonus payments to those folks who had cared for people during the pandemic. And all of that is closed out. But there were some dollars left over through some of that initiative that either because it wasn't rolled out as quickly as we thought, for as long as we thought, it generated some additional funds. And so the process is that when we come up with a new idea of how we want to use those funds, it's approved through our administration, then it goes to CMS. And once they approve it, it comes back to us, usually a few months later, for us to implement and execute on those plans. And so we have quite a few initiatives that are going on as a result of that. And they're all in different phases. Some are being proposed to CMS, some are being executed. And so we're working on a great deal of those projects. I can say that the money for this has to be spent by March of 2025. So the window is closing for us to spend those funds. And so we are making haste with the way that we move through all of the procurement and the projects, logistics, and moving through some of these projects. Another thing that continues, Tangela mentioned it earlier, is the unwinding of the public health emergency, which many cases, you know, every month for us, we get a list of people who are in our programs who have not yet renewed their Medicaid. And so we're involved. We reach out person to person and contact those people on the list and make sure that they've done what they needed to continue their Medicaid eligibility. So we continue to work on that, as well as there were some initiatives or provisions that were put in place during the pandemic. And as those have all unwound now, but there were a few things that were very successful that we have then put in place permanently. And so in some cases, there's rulemaking going on with some of that, and some of them have already been put in place. So we're pleased about that. One of which is the health monitoring. So being able to monitor someone's health in their home with some of those electronic type devices is something that's going to be continued to be paid for through our adult day healthcare programs and the service providers there. So we're happy about that. A new initiative that's really outside of ARPA, just on our own, is the Adult Protective Services Division, which is under OPAS. Remember that depending on the age of the victim, that investigation is conducted by different groups, right? And our group is the 18 to 59 age group. And so, and we also receive complaints for those over age 60. And so EPS, Elderly Protective Services, those complaints come through our office and are triaged as well. And we are going online with an online complaint system, if you will. It's being piloted right now. It's pretty ready to go. So in the next couple of months, there'll be a way for people to basically go online, not have to phone someone. They can actually go online and file a complaint. And of course, there'll be operational, compensation that we'll need to do because we expect our complaints to go up. States that have done this have seen upwards of 25% increase in the number of, allegations. And so we're working, to make sure that we're ready for that. And then as Julie mentioned earlier, it's kind of a rule palooza going on right now at the federal level is what I call it. There's quite a few rule changes coming out that are fairly substantial and will have impact to us in this year. One is the Home and Community-Based Services Rule. There's another one for the Association of Community Living, which impacts our APS, Adult Protective Services work. There's an ADA rule coming out. There's quite a few rules coming out that will have some requirements that we'll need to get on board with. And fortunately for the ACL rule, we had the lead of our APS department was on the committee that helped develop those rules years ago when they started drafting them. And so we had a little bit of heads up. And so we're ready to go on all those new rules. It won't really mean many changes for us. We've already put most of this in place. A lot of it has to do with reporting at the national level, what you're doing at the state level. And so we're already prepared and already have those fields of metrics ready to go. But the Home and Community-Based Service Rule is a pretty extensive one. And we have, as an organization, we kind of bucketed into the things that are like, no problem, we're already doing that. Here's some things we're going to have to get with pretty quickly. And we have, we know we can do it. It's just we're going to need to do it pretty quickly. And then there's the oh no bucket. And there's some oh no stuff that we've got to figure out as well. So you'll be hearing more about the rules that we'll be implementing as soon as they're final. That's the other tricky part. You don't want to get so ahead of your skis that you put something in place and then the rule changes and it doesn't get put in place. So we're in that kind of a witching time of trying to prepare and yet not implement because it may not pass. And then the last kind of two internal areas that we continually work on is eliminating our wait list. One of the numbers that causes us great angst, and I've shared this with you all in previous meetings, is when our communities waiver list, we're up to almost 8,800 people on that wait list. We had gotten down to, and we always talk about the number on the registry, and we also talk about those getting no other services. Because we do have those in that 8,800, quite a few of those are getting services through another program, just not the community choice waiver. And so we're up to 4,200, almost 4,300 people with no other services. We had gotten that number down to less than 900 last October. And so we have, that has just ballooned in the last few months. So we are constantly working to eliminate and minimize that wait list and provide services to those that are waiting. And then another activity that we have going on, we're working really closely with the support coordinator entities in our state to try to help them really understand where the barriers are for them in the whole process of delivering services to people faster, more readily, their workforce. Some of the things that came out of some conversations we had, some listening sessions we had with them in the last few weeks has been getting people trained quicker. They can hire people, but if we can't get them trained fast enough, that doesn't do any good. So we're kind of working through those issues for them and trying to be good partners and work through what we can with that. And so I will note that on the APS numbers, it's a lot of numbers on the page, but at the top of the house, I could say that there was a pretty steady number of abuse and neglect cases over the past, I would say from 2018 to about 2022. And then in 2023, kind of coming out of COVID, we felt this was the reason for it, people kind of getting back to normal environments. We saw about a 7% increase in the number of investigations. And if you'll notice, as we closed out half of this fiscal year, so as of December, 6 months would indicate that if we had 945 investigations halfway through the year, we would have right at 1,900 for the whole year, which represents a 10% increase over last fiscal year. So we are, again, trying to be proactive to make sure that we can not only fully investigate those allegations, but do them in a timely manner with the quality that we're used to. We, in the course of the last year, we had an outside consultant come in and give an overhaul, if you will,
of what our policies and procedures are within our adult protective services to make sure that we were doing everything that we could do, that our policies were sound, that our practice were tight and documented. And we just wrapped that up in November, and we got a glowing report from them. There were a few housekeeping things that they recommended that we change in some of our policies. But overall, not only did we get a very positive, and these are people who used to run these types of investigative services for other states, and now they're consultants and do this. But they said that the review of our book of business was a best practice that no one else had done. And so they'll be inviting Louisiana to come to some of the conferences in the coming year and talk about what this analysis looked at, because we had them not only look at our protocols and procedures, but to also go through some of our investigative reports and tell us, did we do everything we should have done? Is there anything else we should have done or documented that we didn't? So I'm happy to say that that was a very productive, but it was also a good comfort feeling when we got finished, to feel that we had passed our final exam pretty well, and then we'll be sharing that experience with other states as well. So that's all for my report, unless anybody has any questions for me. Okay.
So my question's about ARPA money. So knowing that we have basically a year left, so that can you walk through this together, have a schedule at the beginning of semester stuff? How many more chances, I guess, do we have, especially as we've made requests to council with other organizations about the.
Right, so every quarter we have to report on where we are, like on the things that we've been approved of, how much money have we spent, just like to spend. And so those reports go in, like one went in December. And then the following month is the next opportunity to suggest more things that you'd like to do. And so that January report was actually due to CMS yesterday. And so the next time we'll have an opportunity to ask for new initiatives. We'll turn in our March numbers, and we'll have a report in April that we'll turn in. Now, the tricky part of it is that we have experienced, not to say that it won't be different each quarter, but we've experienced about a 3-month lag time in the time that we submit an idea and then we get an answer back. Now, sometimes there's back and forth with questions, and other times it just takes that long to get an answer. Now, whether or not they'll give answers faster because we're kind of getting closer to the end of the line, we don't know. But we did send some things yesterday, and I cannot speak to whether or not the rate study was submitted. I do know that the audit, the recommendation to use ARPA funds to do the auditing was submitted, or was to be submitted. We haven't gotten confirmation, but I expect that the April one will probably be the last one for any really meaty ones, because if you think about it, if we don't submit again until July and we don't get an answer back until maybe September, then you're less than 6 months to be able to execute something. So those might be things that we could do that were like trainings and things that we could execute, quick, one-time cost kind of thing.
Mindy, the activity you mentioned was submitted.
The rate study was submitted. Okay, good. It was submitted. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
I had that question that I wrote down. Okay. So did you say adult protective service or elderly protective services was under ACL?
Well, they both fall under ACL. Julie, they do. They both fall under or associated with.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, the report requires no action and we place on file. The next item of business is the report of the Department of Education. The chair recognizes Meredith Jordan for the report.
Hey, I won't be super windy. My report's not really extensive. What I'm hearing is that it's the time of federal reporting everywhere. We are definitely in our annual data and reporting process right now for special education in our state. So that's a big task on our radar right now.
But a couple of things, a couple of events, coming up and some things that we've been up to. So we are continuing our special education leader collaborative. So we started back our in-person supports and professional developments for all of our special education directors across our state. We started them back up last year. We've already hosted several in person this year, really focusing in on that networking, bringing them together, building connections, finding out what best practices are happening across our state with students with disabilities, discussing those instructional best practices, what are our compliance needs, looking at some data across our state. So our latest convening was just a couple of weeks ago. And we talked with them, our agency, our office, as well as most of our LEAs right now are in their planning process for next school year. Oddly enough, you don't wait until summer to plan for the next school year and all of the things that you want to accomplish because of that runway that it takes to really plan and make some intentional, actionable steps to improve outcomes. And so our last convening, we talked a lot with them around how to leverage their funds to improve outcomes, how to select those priorities. We really dove deep into special education data. We took them on a journey from a child's perspective, going through our educational system and how that impacts their local data, how that impacts our state data and our federal data, but really bringing it down to these are students and making the right decisions for each and every individual student. And so that was really impactful for them to really grasp why it is we do all of this federal reporting and why we're collecting all of this data, why it's important, is really about students and helping us make really great decisions for them. And then we had a gifted and talented update for them as well. So we're going to host additional professional development. We're going to keep those in-person sessions going. And I'll be totally honest with you all. Some of what I do, a portion of what I do at those meetings is bring back compliance things, bring back conversations that arise from you all, from things that I hear from you. And then I can go back and in a really great setting where I have them all in one place, or the vast majority of them, really get these messages across, right? Because we know our special education directors, these positions turn over to LEAs. And so sometimes while I may feel like a broken record or feel like I sound like a broken record, we have to continue to repeat some of these things. And so it's really helpful for me to hear from you all on things that I know I now need to bring back to them and to communicate to them. And so I just want to give you all that update. And of course, those supports are in addition to our monthly office hours. So we're trying to increase technical assistance to them, giving them a straight line to us to ask whatever question, that they may have in their school system. And that's in addition to our monthly professional development calls too, and then our monthly office hours for them. We've already mentioned today a couple of times about our upcoming Teacher Leader Summit. We are well underway with planning for that event, setting up sessions that we know we're going to do. And as Christy mentioned, the external presenter application is currently open. That event's going to be May 28th to May 30th. In New Orleans. We are expanding it this year, which is going to be very interesting. We normally have 4,000 to 5,000 educators, and we're going to try to host 6,000 to 7,000. But it's a great thing. It's a really great expansion. It's a wonderful 3 days of learning. And so as far as our office, and we always have this for the past couple of years, and we expect to exceed that this year. We've had an internal joke that it's the Diverse Learner Summit because we have so many sessions and have really packed that agenda with sessions that impact our students with disabilities, sessions for general educators, sessions for special educators, sessions for leaders about best practice and about really improving outcomes. So a couple of sessions specific that we're thinking about this year. We'll have some sessions this year around dyslexia support. That's a real hot topic in our state right now. Modifying and accommodating high quality instruction for students with significant cognitive disabilities. That's something that we hear a lot about from our families and from our educators. How do we provide high quality instruction to those students as well, giving them the same access to high quality curriculum as their non-disabled peers? So we'll have some sessions around that. We're going to do some additional pupil appraisal support this year and related service provider support at Teacher Leader Summit. We'll have some panel sessions. One of the things I think that's great about Teacher Leader Summit is also the networking capabilities and the ability to learn from what other school systems are doing. And so we're going to be really intentional and do some sessions with some of our top growth school systems who far surpass the state's growth in students with disabilities, and really dig into what was their planning like, what strategies are they implementing, and be able to share that across the state and with our participants, so they can kind of take away from that, what are some things that I could change in my school system. We'll do some additional behavior support, and I heard that earlier, so that's on my mind. We'll do some literacy support for students with disabilities, how to use evaluations to write high quality IEPs. We've done that session in a couple of different places, and it's been highly requested. So we're going to kind of go back and link the evaluations to high quality IEPs and writing high quality goals for educators. And like I said, much, much more. So we will have at every time slot of that summit, we will have a session that is geared towards supporting students with disabilities in some way, shape, or fashion. Probably multiple at each time slot, because we'll have our team members presenting. And then, of course, we'll have a lot of our external applicants who will be submitting as well. We have several popular ones who come every year and provide some support at Teacher Leader Summit. So that's something that we're really gearing up. This is that time of year that we're in federal reporting. Once I get past February 1st, we really start gearing up for Teacher Leader Summit in May as well. Every year about this time, I bring to you all our process that we are starting now for our FFY 24 IDA funding application. And so this is our application for our state level IDEA funds that we can use to move forward state strategy. So that application, my office leads it, putting together that information, working with stakeholders. We'll start this month, and we will continuously engage, revise, talk through with SEEP, get stakeholder input all the way through May when we actually submit that application. We've got this on our SEEP agenda for next week. But I was going to talk a little bit about education and employment about this and get some initial input from this group as well about what should some of our priorities for our spending in education be. So I can definitely email out whenever we're going through the approval process now to submit our input survey. So step one is our stakeholder input survey. And so I can definitely share that out to the council members as soon as we release it. So you guys all get it straight from me as well to be able, and then share it. We want as much input. I read every single survey, I really like the open-ended comments, because that's where people really go into detail about, hey, I really think we should invest some money and use our money in this way. And that's really helpful. So I'll definitely keep that on your radar, share that public input survey. Once we get all of that back, we will start drafting the application, and then I'll share again when we post that application publicly. We have a 30-day comment period. And so I'll keep you all in the loop on that process as we develop that. And then last, just a quick SEEP update. I know you all like to hear these. We've met twice already this school year. We have an upcoming meeting next week. We'll meet again in March. And so We were also going to talk about at Education and Employment, the local special education advisory template. It's on my SEEP agenda for next week to get input on that template as well. I can still share it with this group. I wanted some input from our Education Employment Committee. But we'll get some input at SEEP. I could also bring it back in March. We don't collect those from school systems until May. And I can always update it so I can bring that back to March for Education Employment as well. We did have Bessie meeting this week. We've got a new board, new officers in place. So we're excited to work alongside our new board to improve outcomes for our students with disabilities as well. And just a reminder to everyone, I'm happy to share events, things that are happening. If you just shoot them my way or email me, we'll get anything out to our LEAs as best as possible, Christy, in our newsletters and multiple avenues, even on social media, on any events that would be good for our LEAs and our educators to know as well. So I'm always happy to help communicate anything that's going on with other offices. That's it for me. Was there any other public comments?
One of the things that I love the idea of using the evaluation as the mechanism to develop a good foundation on IEP. What I'd like to see y'all do, perhaps or consider doing, is including in the monitoring process. Right now, every district, the State Department pick one random IEP, just one, and have them do an analysis of how that IEP relates not only to the evaluation, but all of the data collected since that evaluation. We did that in Lafourche for a couple of years and they hated it.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they're still doing it, but it gives you an idea of how those things are connected, because so often the teachers don't really necessarily understand why the IEP objectives should be the way they should be. If y'all can incorporate that, it would beef up your monitoring system. And it moves again from what the State Department said they wanted to do many years ago, move from compliance to quality. And it's manageable to do 1 or 2 IEPs per district. That would be, and charters included. That would be phenomenal, I think.
That's a heavy ask, Dot.
Go ahead, Jill.
Okay, I don't know if I'm going crazy or this was an error or just having hallucinations in general. But I swear when I clicked on the link for Department of Ed for this meeting to prepare us, swear only once it brought me to the MOU between LRS and y'all. Is that
I think it was linked in the Education and Employment Committee
Okay.
agenda.
I don't provide it, so.
for some reason, like, why do I think it's not? Did I hear that it wasn't supposed to be made public?
No, I had to ask permission to share it, but then I finally got permission.
Okay, cause I saw it and I wanted to look at it and that quick it was gone.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Should be linked in the Education Committee's agenda.
Okay, I didn't see it linked, but, okay, cool, thanks. Alright, that is all.
Joe, I'll double check for you also, thing, but I thought I did okay, but I'll check to make sure.
Any other comments? Hearing none. This report requires no action and will be placed on file. If there is no objection, the meeting will recess for lunch. Hearing none, the meeting is at recess. It is now 11:57. And we will convene at, we have another hour, at 1 o'clock.
Where?
Thank